Focus on You Until You Win is a powerful and motivational guide that teaches you to stop chasing validation from others and instead build discipline, purpose, and confidence through self-mastery. This book emphasizes that real success starts within. When you commit to growth, block out distractions, and fully concentrate on becoming your best self, nothing can stop you. Introduction. The introduction of Focus on You Until You Win begins with a direct and often uncomfortable truth. Most people live their entire lives focused outward, concerned with other people's opinions, chasing validation, approval, likes, and recognition, yet completely disconnected from their own internal power, goals, and self-worth. From the very start, the book challenges this destructive habit, highlighting how society, family, and social media train us to seek comfort, distraction, and constant entertainment instead of solitude, discipline, and self-mastery. It explains that the average person's mind is polluted with noise, opinions that don't matter, toxic relationships that drain energy, habits that lead nowhere, and fears that are not even their own. In this chaotic and noisy world, people are pulled in 1,000 directions, and as a result, they never become who they are truly meant to be. The book doesn't offer sympathy for this state. It offers a wake-up call. It says clearly, nobody is coming to save you. If you don't make yourself your main focus, the world will use you for its agenda, and you will die unfulfilled, wondering why you never reached your potential. The introduction emphasizes that focusing on yourself is not selfish. It is survival. Until you know who you are, what you want, and what you're willing to suffer for, you are just floating through life, a puppet of outside influence. The book presents self-focus as an act of rebellion against mediocrity, laziness, and victimhood. It says you must be ruthless in your priorities, protective of your time, and unapologetic about building your vision, even if it means being misunderstood, alone, or doubted. You are reminded that discipline will always outlast motivation, and pain is a part of the process, but it's a powerful pain, the kind that builds character, confidence, and clarity. The introduction explains that when you commit fully to becoming the best version of yourself, the world shifts in your favor, because you are no longer hoping or wishing. You are working, growing, and evolving with intention. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop needing and start providing. You stop blaming and start building. Everything begins to change the moment you stop trying to impress others and start trying to impress yourself. The book makes it clear that winners are not born. They are created through insane focus, consistent action, and the ability to say no to anything that doesn't align with their purpose. The introduction invites the reader to break away from the herd and embrace a new kind of life, one where silence becomes your power, discipline your weapon, and progress your obsession. It warns that this journey is not easy. It is lonely, uncomfortable, and filled with doubt, but it is worth it. Because the moment you stop scattering your energy and begin to direct it all inward, something incredible happens. Your mindset sharpens. Your energy rises, your confidence grows, and your results explode. You realize that you are not behind in life. You are just distracted. And now, as the book opens, it dares you to lock in. Go all in on yourself, and focus so intensely that winning becomes inevitable. This is not about being better than others. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. It's about becoming someone so strong, disciplined, and focused that nothing and no one can pull you off your path. It is the moment you stop chasing the world and start building a version of yourself the world can't ignore. The introduction plants this seed of truth deep in your mind. Your power was never out there. It was always within you. And this book will show you how to unleash it. Chapter 1. Cut the Noise. Chapter 1. Cut the Noise goes deep into the foundation of personal transformation by confronting one of the biggest reasons why people fail to grow, focus, or win in life. too much noise in their internal and external environments. Noise isn't just literal sound. It's mental clutter, emotional chaos, pointless entertainment, shallow conversations, distractions from digital screens, and the opinions of people who add no value to your life. The chapter begins by confronting the reality that your mind was not designed to handle the non-stop barrage of dopamine-triggering distractions in today's world: social media, news alerts, gossip, endless scrolling, addictive apps, shallow content, and the constant need to check what others are doing. All of this overstimulation creates mental fog, robs your ability to think deeply, and destroys your attention span, leaving you unfocused, reactive, and easily overwhelmed. The chapter points out that people are addicted to being distracted because distraction feels easier than facing responsibility, discomfort, or the truth about where you are in life. Noise becomes a numbing agent. It silences your intuition, your ambition, and your sense of urgency. But while it may feel harmless, the long-term effect is brutal. Years go by, and you're in the same place mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially because you spent more time consuming than creating, reacting than acting. This chapter explains that cutting the noise is not just about being more productive. It's about becoming more powerful, clear-minded, and intentional. You are urged to take radical control over your environment, to detox your mind and life from all the invisible clutter that keeps you stuck. It says you must unfollow pages, mute apps, delete what doesn't educate, inspire, or serve your mission. You must evaluate the people you allow into your life. Are they adding energy or draining it? Are they challenging you to grow or keeping you comfortable in mediocrity? It reminds you that you become who you surround yourself with, and you absorb what you expose yourself to. Cutting the noise requires discipline, but it also requires honesty, admitting what's holding you back and choosing to let go, even if it's familiar, fun, or socially acceptable. It's saying no to every conversation that goes nowhere, every notification that pulls your focus, every excuse to procrastinate. This chapter emphasizes that noise isn't always loud. Sometimes it's disguised as entertainment, relaxation, or even staying informed. But if it steals your attention from your vision, it's still noise. The most dangerous part is that noise is addictive. It becomes your default. You wake up and reach for your phone before you even take a deep breath, scrolling through other people's lives before you've made a decision about your own day. You lose hours each week chasing fake connection, irrelevant opinions, or controversy that has nothing to do with your goals. This chapter explains that true power comes when you reclaim your attention and put it back where it belongs, on your mission, your values, your purpose, your future. When you cut the noise, you begin to hear yourself again, your real thoughts, your deepest goals, and the whisper of your inner voice, which has been buried under years of external interference. It reminds you that clarity isn't found in more information. It's found in less noise. Greatness begins with quiet. The world conditions you to be hyperstimulated and distracted because a distracted person is easier to control, manipulate, and sell to. But when you cut the noise, you become dangerous in the best way. Sharp, unshakable, laser-focused. You no longer chase validation, likes, or gossip. You become unreachable to drama, irrelevant trends, and weak thinking. You become unavailable to people who don't align with your path. This chapter stresses that to win in any area, fitness, money, mindset, spirituality, or relationships, you must first learn to protect your focus like a lion protects its territory. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and noise is the silent thief that steals it every day. So you're not just told to reduce distractions, you're told to attack them. Remove the apps. Block the websites. Turn off the notifications. Leave the group chats. Limit the phone calls. Schedule time for deep work. Carve out silence. Think clearly. Be unavailable to everything that doesn't elevate you. You are reminded that it will feel uncomfortable at first, maybe even lonely, because you're unplugging from the world everyone else is trapped in. But the discomfort is temporary, and the freedom, the clarity, and the mental strength you gain will change everything. As this chapter drives home again and again, when your mind is quiet, your vision gets louder. When the noise is gone, your power returns. And when your attention is yours again, you finally get to build the life you are meant to live, without compromise, without confusion, and without wasting another moment on things that don't matter. Chapter 2. Discipline over motivation. Chapter 2. Discipline over motivation begins by challenging one of the most popular but dangerous beliefs in personal development, the idea that you need to feel inspired, excited, or emotionally fired up before taking action. It completely dismantles the myth that motivation is a reliable driving force in life, pointing out that motivation is inconsistent, unpredictable, emotional, and often dependent on circumstances, moods, or external stimulation. You might feel motivated after watching a video, reading a quote, or listening to a speech. But as soon as life gets hard, that emotion fades, and when it fades, you're left with nothing if you haven't built discipline. This chapter repeatedly drives home the fact that discipline is the only thing that keeps you going when everything else in you wants to stop. It is the inner structure, the invisible contract with yourself, the silent force that makes you wake up early when you'd rather sleep, work when you'd rather relax, train when your body hurts, and stick to your goals when no one is watching. It teaches that discipline isn't exciting or glamorous. It's repetitive, tough, and often boring, but it's the backbone of every long-term success story. Where motivation is based on emotion, discipline is based on decision. You decide to follow through whether you feel like it or not. The chapter outlines that winners are not people who are always inspired. They are people who train themselves to show up regardless of how they feel. It explains that high achievers, world-class athletes, top entrepreneurs, and focused individuals all rely on systems, routines, and standards, not random bursts of motivation. You are told that relying on motivation is like trying to build a house on quicksand. It shifts too much, disappears under pressure, and cannot hold the weight of your vision. On the other hand, discipline is like laying bricks every single day, even in the rain, even when you're tired, even when no one believes in you, because you trust the process and you're building something permanent. The chapter teaches that discipline means honoring your commitments to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. It says discipline isn't punishment, it's power. It's how you take control of your life and stop being a slave to your impulses and emotions. When you act with discipline, you override temporary feelings and lock into long-term purpose. It challenges you to ask, what do I value more, momentary comfort or lasting progress? Discipline is choosing the latter, over and over again. The chapter teaches that motivation begs for the right mood, the right weather, the perfect circumstances, but discipline adapts. It doesn't care about the weather, the mood, or the obstacles. It gets the job done anyway. That's why people who build discipline move past the crowd, because they are consistent. And consistency is what creates real results over time. This chapter also focuses on the psychological shift you must make. Stop looking for excitement and start looking for execution. It's not about how many times you wanted to change your life. It's about how many times you acted when it was hard. Every single day you act with discipline, you build mental toughness. You train your mind to obey your goals instead of your emotions. You harden your willpower like a muscle, and over time, your identity transforms. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who doesn't negotiate with weakness, someone who takes control rather than waiting for things to feel right. The chapter warns that people who chase motivation live in cycles of inconsistency. They start strong and quit early. They get hyped and then vanish. They talk more than they execute. But people who build discipline become dangerous. They work in silence. They operate in systems. They move through doubt, fatigue, and failure without losing steam. Discipline is what builds the compound effect, the invisible stacking of actions that, over time, lead to massive transformation. You may not see the reward today, but discipline assures that one day it will come, and it will be undeniable. The chapter reinforces that discipline isn't natural for most people. It's trained, built, and forged through effort and discomfort. It asks you to create structure in your life. Wake-up times, study hours, daily goals, eating plans, workouts, and stick to them, even when your feelings rebel. It reminds you that every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're investing in your future self, the one you've been dreaming of becoming. This chapter helps you redefine your relationship with discomfort, helping you see it as the doorway to power, not the signal to stop. It shows you that motivation might get you started, but only discipline will carry you through the dark seasons, the lonely moments, the failures, and the doubts. Discipline creates freedom, freedom from regret, freedom from guilt, freedom from being controlled by mood swings, weakness, or outside pressure. It tells you that there is no shortcut. If you want results, you must show up daily and do the work, with or without motivation. The world rewards consistency, not bursts of effort. In the end, this chapter isn't just about building discipline. It's about building character, identity, and the kind of mindset that doesn't just chase success, but earns it through unshakable daily action. When the emotions fade, the hype dies, and the mood changes, discipline is what keeps you moving forward like a machine with a purpose. And once you build that kind of discipline, you become unstoppable because you don't depend on feelings, you depend on standards. That is the real power that this chapter teaches you to develop. Chapter 3. Mindset is everything. Chapter 3. Mindset is everything. Relentlessly drives home the idea that your mindset is the control panel of your life, the master switch that determines how you interpret reality, how you respond to adversity, how you think about yourself, your goals, your struggles, and your future, and that without the right mindset, nothing you do will ever be sustainable or fulfilling. This chapter explores in exhaustive detail how every single result you've ever produced, whether good or bad, is rooted in the dominant patterns of thought you've allowed to control your life. It begins by revealing how most people live unconsciously, running on mental programs they didn't choose, beliefs passed down from family, trauma, fear, social conditioning, or repeated failure, and how these invisible scripts quietly sabotaged their success, confidence, relationships, and health. You're told that mindset is not just a way of thinking, it's a way of being, a full system of identity and interpretation that defines whether you rise or retreat when life gets hard. The chapter insists that talent doesn't matter without the right mindset, that hard work falls apart without mental resilience, and that even opportunities become invisible to someone who is mentally trapped in limitation. It describes how winners think differently from the rest. They don't just react to life, they shape it. They don't wait for proof to believe in themselves. They believe first, act on that belief, and let the proof catch up. This chapter teaches that you don't get what you want in life. You get what you expect, and your expectations are born from your mindset. A person with a strong mindset expects growth, expects setbacks but doesn't fear them, expects resistance but is prepared, expects great things because they've trained their mind to reject doubt and focus on possibility. The chapter digs into how most people unconsciously rehearse failure in their mind every day, telling themselves they're not good enough, not ready, not smart enough, or too late, and then wonder why they hesitate, procrastinate, or settle for less. Your mind is always listening to the story you tell it, and if your internal dialogue is full of fear, shame, regret, excuses, or self-sabotage, then your reality will match that exact frequency. You're taught that changing your life starts with changing that story, rewriting the script of who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve, and how you show up. Mindset isn't something you flip like a switch once. It's something you train daily like a muscle, through reading, reflection, action, failure, discipline, and repetition. The chapter warns that most people's lives stay small because they think small. They don't lack opportunity. They lack belief. And belief is a choice. The chapter teaches that winners don't see failure as a sign to stop. They see it as part of the equation, as data, feedback, and mental armor. They don't see rejection as personal. They see it as redirection. They don't avoid pain. They use it as fuel. It emphasizes that a powerful mindset is not naturally inherited. It is forged in hard moments, in lonely nights, in quiet decisions, in the choice to keep moving when everyone else gives up. You are taught that nothing outside of you can truly defeat you unless your own mind accepts defeat. And that's why mental mastery is the ultimate power. This chapter pulls no punches. If you allow your mindset to be shaped by distractions, negativity, social comparison, weak people, and emotional comfort, then your life will reflect all of that. But if you intentionally feed your mind with strength, clarity, and vision, you become unstoppable. It breaks down how your mindset is responsible for how you use your time, who you choose to associate with, how you treat your body, and how you handle criticism, fear, and risk. It makes it clear that until you take full ownership of your mental patterns, you'll be controlled by them. You'll shrink yourself to fit environments that don't deserve you. You'll hesitate to take chances. You'll let opinions ruin your self-esteem, and you'll blame external conditions for your internal instability. But when your mindset shifts, when you decide to think like a creator, not a victim, your whole world starts to rearrange. You stop tolerating average. You stop over-explaining your dreams to small minds. You stop waiting for motivation, approval, or validation. Instead, you begin to move with purpose, with quiet certainty, with a deeper drive that doesn't depend on outside hype. You understand that your outer world bends to the vibration of your inner world. And once your mind is aligned with strength, focus, and vision, you become the cause, not the effect. This chapter trains you to eliminate weak language from your vocabulary. No more, I hope, maybe, or if, and replace it with certainty, clarity, and when. It teaches you that winners don't beg for opportunities. They prepare so relentlessly that opportunities have no choice but to appear. You learn that mindset is what keeps you going when results are invisible. It's what makes you work when nobody's clapping. It's what helps you get up again and again and again. This chapter concludes by making one truth painfully clear. No matter what tools, resources, or advantages you think you need, none of them will matter until your mindset is sharpened like a weapon. Because in the end, your mindset doesn't just influence your life. It is your life. Chapter 4. Work in Silence. Chapter 4. Work in Silence delves profoundly into the concept that true progress, lasting success, and meaningful transformation rarely happen with fanfare, attention, or constant updates to others. Rather, they occur in the quiet, hidden moments when no one is watching. And this chapter repeatedly stresses that those who understand the power of silence gain a monumental advantage over those who seek constant validation or approval. It teaches that in today's hyper-connected, noisy world, people have developed an unhealthy habit of sharing every goal, every thought, and every plan prematurely on social media or with their immediate circles, which often results in a massive energy leak and a subconscious premature sense of achievement. This phenomenon, explained in detail, shows that when you announce a goal before it is achieved, your brain tricks you into feeling you have already accomplished something, which lowers the drive to take consistent, focused action needed to complete the task. The chapter also explores how vocalizing your plans opens the door to unsolicited advice, criticism, and negative opinions from others who may not understand your vision or may even be envious or doubtful, creating unnecessary pressure and distractions that can derail your progress before it truly begins. It describes how working quietly cultivates a deep internal commitment and an intimate relationship with your goals that is not dependent on external validation, but fueled by intrinsic motivation and a burning desire to prove your. The text emphasizes that when you work in silence, you protect your energy and your focus, keeping your efforts hidden from distractions, naysayers, and the ego's desire for immediate recognition. This protection enables you to build momentum steadily and resiliently, allowing progress to compound over time without the interruptions that come from seeking approval or public praise. The chapter further explains how silence becomes a form of power because it creates an element of surprise. People are often skeptical or dismissive at first, but when you quietly build skill, knowledge, and results, the sudden appearance of undeniable success shocks the doubters and silences critics more effectively than any explanation or argument could. It encourages readers to think of working in silence like a lion stalking its prey. It doesn't roar or announce its intentions. It moves with purpose, patience, and unshakable focus, waiting for the perfect moment to strike decisively. The chapter also dissects common psychological traps that cause people to prematurely share their dreams, such as the need for reassurance, fear of failure, or the desire to impress others, and offers strategies to overcome these impulses by cultivating self-reliance and mental toughness. It teaches that silence fosters humility, as it reminds you that your worth and progress are not measured by how loudly you proclaim your ambitions, but by how diligently you pursue them when no one is looking. The chapter explores the way consistent, silent work strengthens patience, a rare and invaluable quality that allows you to endure setbacks, delays, and slow progress without losing faith or motivation. It discusses how silence is also a form of respect for your own process, a way of honoring your goals by not diluting their power with unnecessary chatter or premature declarations that can lead to burnout or disappointment. Furthermore, it reveals how working quietly allows you to focus on mastery rather than image, meaning you prioritize actual skill development and meaningful effort over simply looking busy or impressive to others. The chapter contrasts those who seek loud validation and temporary fame with those who build legacies through unseen daily efforts, pointing out that the loudest people in the room are rarely the ones who create lasting impact. It explains how silence helps avoid the trap of comparison and social pressure, because when you're not constantly sharing your progress, you don't fall victim to measuring yourself against others or worrying about others' judgments. The chapter also touches on the spiritual and psychological benefits of solitude and silence, including deeper self-awareness, clearer vision, and greater emotional control, all of which enhance focus and drive. It repeatedly reinforces that this silent work ethic builds character, discipline, and resilience, qualities that can't be faked or rushed, and that eventually manifest as unstoppable momentum. The chapter encourages readers to embrace the discomfort of silence and solitude, reframing these states as essential environments for growth rather than loneliness or boredom. It instructs that silence is a shield, a tool to keep your dreams safe from skepticism, and a space where your mind can focus without the noise of external expectations or distractions. The chapter also warns against the dangers of boasting or premature bragging, which can invite failure and embarrassment, whereas working quietly lets your success announce itself with undeniable proof. It tells readers that the world often celebrates showmanship and loud declarations, but in reality, those who quietly do the work tend to be the ones who achieve the highest and most sustained levels of success. The chapter concludes by impressing that patience, humility, and focused effort done away from the spotlight create a powerful foundation that prepares you to win when the time is right. It reminds you that when you finally reveal the fruits of your labor, they will be far more impactful because they come from a place of deep, silent commitment rather than fleeting hype. In essence, this chapter teaches that mastering the art of working in silence is one of the greatest secrets to long-term success, and that learning to love the quiet grind while avoiding distractions, opinions, and premature celebrations is what separates the real winners from the rest of the crowd. Chapter 5. Respect your time. Chapter 5. Respect your time explores in exhaustive detail the idea that time is the most precious and non-renewable resource you have, underscoring that unlike money, opportunities, or even relationships, once time is lost, it can never be regained, making it imperative to treat every minute with utmost reverence and strategic care. The chapter explains how most people unconsciously undervalue time because it is intangible and invisible, often leading them into habits of procrastination, distraction, and aimless activity that silently but steadily erode their potential for success, fulfillment, and happiness. It elaborates on the psychological reasons behind this undervaluation, such as the human brain's tendency to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term benefits, and the overwhelming flood of distractions from digital devices, social media, and entertainment platforms that fragment attention and waste hours daily without any conscious awareness. You are guided to understand that respecting your time requires a fundamental mindset shift, where time is no longer seen as abundant or expendable, but as a finite, sacred currency to be budgeted, invested, and guarded with precision and discipline. The chapter teaches practical strategies to protect your time, starting with ruthless prioritization, learning to identify which activities align most closely with your core goals and values, and eliminating or delegating everything else that doesn't contribute meaningfully to your growth or well-being. It highlights the critical skill of saying no, emphasizing that declining invitations, requests, or distractions that do not serve your purpose is not rude or selfish, but an essential act of self-respect and focus. The chapter also provides a deep dive into setting boundaries, both personal and professional, to shield your time from intrusion, such as limiting meetings, creating dedicated work periods free from interruptions, and communicating clearly with others about your availability and priorities. It explains that these boundaries send a strong message to others that your time is valuable and non-negotiable, which in turn helps cultivate respect from colleagues, friends, and family. There is a strong focus on combating the addictive nature of modern distractions, analyzing how social media, endless scrolling, binge-watching, and multitasking act as time thieves that reduce mental clarity, increase stress, and diminish productivity, often under the guise of relaxation or social connection. You learn techniques to regain control, including digital detoxes, scheduled breaks, and mindful use of technology, all aimed at reclaiming your attention and focus. The chapter warns about the dangers of overcommitment, explaining that trying to do too many things at once, or constantly pleasing others, spreads your energy thin and leads to mediocre outcomes rather than excellence. Instead, it advocates for strategic commitment, focusing deeply on fewer high-impact activities where your time investment will yield exponential results, rather than chasing quantity over quality. It underscores the importance of building daily routines and habits that honor your most productive times of day, minimize decision fatigue, and create a flow state where work feels effortless and progress becomes inevitable. The chapter also addresses the necessity of scheduling downtime, rest, and self-care as critical investments in sustaining long-term energy and creativity, reminding you that respecting time includes respecting your own health and mental well-being. It explores how a consistent practice of respecting time reduces stress and anxiety by providing structure and control over your environment, enabling you to navigate demands with calmness and confidence. The chapter reminds readers that everyone has the same 24 hours, making time the ultimate equalizer, but those who develop the discipline to guard and invest their time wisely create vast differences in achievement, fulfillment, and life quality. It encourages you to conduct regular audits of how you spend your day, identifying hidden time leaks and unconscious habits that drain your hours. Then redesigning your schedule and environment to optimize flow and focus on what truly matters. The text emphasizes that respecting time is not about cramming more tasks into your day, but about working smarter, focusing your effort and attention on meaningful, aligned actions rather than busyness or distraction. It highlights the emotional and psychological empowerment that comes from mastering your time, including increased motivation, clearer vision, heightened self-esteem, and a stronger sense of agency over your own life path. The chapter stresses that respecting your time means embracing tough choices and discomfort, such as declining social invitations or saying no to distractions, but that this discomfort is temporary and necessary for long-term gain. It reminds you that these decisions cultivate patience and perseverance, essential qualities for sustained success. The chapter also reflects on cultural attitudes toward time and busyness, challenging the glorification of being constantly busy as a status symbol, instead promoting intentional living and purpose-driven action as true markers of success. It provides insights into balancing time between work, relationships, personal growth, and rest, underscoring that respecting time is a holistic practice that supports all areas of life. Finally, the chapter culminates in a powerful call to action, urging you to embrace radical respect for your time as the foundational step toward unlocking your full potential, achieving your dreams, maintaining meaningful relationships, and living a life of freedom, clarity, and fulfillment, fully aware that how you use your time today shapes the entire course of your future. Chapter 6. Build Habits That Win. Chapter 6. Build Habits That Win delves deeply into the transformative power of habits, explaining that the core of lasting success and personal growth lies not in rare bursts of motivation or dramatic life changes, but in the steady, consistent formation of positive habits that become ingrained in your daily routine and ultimately define your character and results over time. It reveals that habits are essentially automatic behaviors wired into your brain's neural pathways, meaning once established, they require far less conscious effort and energy to perform than one-off decisions or sporadic attempts at change, which makes building strong, beneficial habits crucial for long-term progress, because they act as the unseen engine driving your daily productivity and mindset. The chapter meticulously breaks down the science of habit formation, emphasizing the critical role of small, manageable steps often called atomic habits, because attempting to overhaul your life overnight is overwhelming and unsustainable, while incremental improvements repeated daily build momentum and create a compounding effect that transforms your capabilities and environment gradually but powerfully. It explores the concept of habit loops, consisting of cues or triggers, routines, and rewards, highlighting that understanding and manipulating these components allows you to design habits deliberately. For example, by placing cues in your environment that prompt positive actions, automating good behaviors, and reinforcing them with meaningful rewards that satisfy psychological needs and strengthen motivation. The chapter encourages a strategic approach to environmental design, recognizing that your surroundings heavily influence your behaviors, removing temptations and distractions while embedding visual and contextual reminders of your goals makes it easier to adopt and sustain winning habits, turning your physical and social environment into an ally in your journey. It further stresses the importance of identity-based habit formation, meaning that rather than focusing solely on what you want to achieve, you shift your focus to who you want to become, so that your habits become expressions of your desired self-identity, which creates a powerful internal motivation that aligns actions with self-image and makes positive behaviors more automatic and fulfilling. The chapter provides practical tactics such as habit stacking, where new habits are linked to existing routines to facilitate their adoption. And habit tracking, which offers tangible evidence of progress and encourages perseverance through visual feedback and accountability. It also confronts common obstacles that derail habit formation, such as the natural resistance to change, emotional setbacks, and external disruptions. Teaching resilience strategies, like reframing failures as learning opportunities, adjusting expectations, and maintaining flexibility while staying committed to the overall direction of growth. The text highlights that habits are rarely perfect. Setbacks and lapses are part of the process, and self-compassion is vital to avoid the trap of all-or-nothing thinking that leads to giving up. Instead, advocating for a get-back-on-track mindset that ensures continuity and recovery. The chapter illustrates the exponential impact of consistent habits by sharing examples and principles that show how daily small improvements, even as little as 1% better each day, accumulate over weeks and months to yield breakthroughs in productivity, health, mindset, and relationships. Framing habit building as the true path to mastery and freedom from reliance on fleeting motivation or externals. It also discusses the role of willpower, noting that while it's a finite resource, building habits minimizes dependence on willpower by embedding behaviors into your subconscious patterns, thereby making success more sustainable and less exhausting. The chapter further explores the social dimension of habits, explaining how surrounding yourself with people who embody the habits you want to develop or who support your growth can significantly boost your chances of success through social reinforcement, accountability, and inspiration. It stresses the value of clarity and intention in habit formation. Knowing precisely why a habit matters to you and what benefits it brings increases commitment and helps overcome obstacles by linking habits to deeply personal motivations and long-term visions. The chapter also examines the importance of routine and ritual in habit strength, explaining that rituals provide structure, reduce anxiety, and create psychological readiness that primes your mind and body to perform effectively, reinforcing habits at a deeper emotional level. It advises regular reflection and adjustment, encouraging you to assess which habits serve you best and which may need refinement or replacement as your goals and circumstances evolve, underscoring that habit building is a dynamic, lifelong process rather than a one-time project. The chapter closes with an empowering message that by consciously and patiently building habits that win small, deliberate actions aligned with your values and vision, you create a foundation for extraordinary growth, resilience in the face of challenges, and a life that consistently moves toward your highest potential and deepest fulfillment. Chapter 7. Delay gratification. Chapter 7. Delay gratification thoroughly examines the profound importance of the ability to resist immediate temptations and impulses in favor of pursuing far greater, long-term rewards, illustrating that this skill is a fundamental pillar of discipline, emotional intelligence, and sustained success in any endeavor. The chapter begins by explaining how human brains are biologically wired to seek instant pleasure due to the release of dopamine and activation of reward centers, which creates powerful cravings for quick fixes such as comfort foods, entertainment, social validation, or procrastination through distractions. While these instant gratifications provide fleeting joy, the chapter reveals how repeatedly succumbing to them can undermine personal growth, productivity, and even mental and physical health, setting up patterns of impulsivity that sabotage goals and delay meaningful achievement. It emphasizes that mastering the art of delaying gratification is essentially learning to override these primal impulses through conscious choice, self-control, and a forward-looking mindset that prioritizes future benefits over momentary satisfaction. The text delves into the psychological mechanisms behind delay of gratification, describing how it strengthens prefrontal cortex function, the part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and impulse control, thus enhancing willpower and mental resilience over time. The chapter describes how cultivating this skill helps individuals develop greater patience, enabling them to endure discomfort, boredom, or frustration without resorting to escapism or immediate rewards, which in turn builds emotional strength and confidence in facing life's inevitable challenges. It presents practical, actionable strategies to cultivate delay of gratification, such as setting clear, specific goals that provide compelling reasons to resist temptation, creating environmental modifications that reduce access to distractions or impulsive choices, and employing visualization and mindfulness techniques that anchor attention on long-term visions rather than fleeting urges. The chapter underscores the importance of incremental practice, noting that like any muscle, the ability to delay gratification grows stronger through repeated use and gradually becomes an automatic, empowering habit rather than a constant struggle. It draws upon extensive scientific studies and real-world examples, including the famous marshmallow experiment, to demonstrate how individuals who successfully develop delay of gratification tend to achieve better academic, career, financial, and health outcomes as they consistently make thoughtful, disciplined decisions that align with their core values and ambitions. The chapter also explores common misconceptions and challenges, such as mistaking procrastination or avoidance for productive delay, and teaches how to differentiate between purposeful waiting and unhealthy passivity, encouraging reflection and intentionality in every choice. Additionally, it highlights the role of self-awareness and emotional regulation in catching impulsive thoughts early, managing stress and cravings without giving in, and maintaining clarity of purpose even under pressure or during setbacks. The chapter stresses that delaying gratification is not about deprivation or self-denial, but about exercising freedom and control over one's actions, choosing to invest time, energy, and resources into what truly matters, rather than being enslaved by fleeting pleasures or distractions. It explains that this practice fosters a profound sense of autonomy and empowerment, enabling individuals to break free from cycles of addiction, impulsivity, and regret, and to replace them with habits and mindsets that support long-term well-being and achievement. The chapter further discusses how delay of gratification enhances focus and motivation, allowing you to prioritize high-impact tasks, avoid burnout caused by constant switching between short-term rewards, and build momentum toward your most meaningful aspirations. It also considers the social and environmental factors that influence gratification impulses, advising on how to surround yourself with supportive people, cultivate positive influences, and design environments that encourage discipline rather than temptation. The text emphasizes the necessity of perseverance, reminding readers that setbacks are normal and that the key to mastery lies in quickly recovering from lapses without harsh self-judgment, maintaining a growth mindset that views challenges as opportunities for learning and growth. It suggests journaling or self-reflection practices to track progress, recognize patterns, and reinforce the psychological commitment to delay gratification. The chapter concludes with a powerful message that developing this ability is a lifelong journey with compounding benefits, as each act of choosing long-term gain over immediate pleasure strengthens character, expands freedom, and brings you closer to living a life aligned with your deepest values, goals, and true potential, ultimately making the difference between fleeting success and enduring fulfillment. Chapter 8. Get Comfortable Being Alone. Chapter 8. Get Comfortable Being Alone explores the profound necessity and transformative power of learning to embrace solitude, arguing that being comfortable alone is not merely about physical separation from others, but about cultivating an inner sanctuary of peace, clarity, and self-acceptance that is independent of external validation or social distractions. It opens by acknowledging that many people fear solitude because it exposes them to the quiet and stillness that force a confrontation with their own thoughts, emotions, and vulnerabilities, elements often masked by the noise of social interaction. entertainment, or the constant busyness of life. Yet the chapter explains that avoiding solitude keeps you trapped in a reactive state where you are overly dependent on outside stimuli to feel worthy or fulfilled, which undermines your emotional stability and stunts personal growth. It deeply examines how regular and intentional time alone creates an invaluable space for reflection, allowing you to peel back layers of external influence and societal conditioning to discover your true values, desires, and identity. This process of self-discovery leads to greater self-awareness, enabling you to understand your motivations, fears, and patterns of behavior more clearly, which is the foundation for lasting change and purposeful living. The text highlights that solitude helps build self-reliance by forcing you to trust your own judgment and intuition without the need to constantly seek advice, approval, or reassurance from others, which cultivates confidence and autonomy. It stresses that being alone is often confused with loneliness, but loneliness is a feeling of isolation and disconnection, whereas solitude can be a deeply nourishing state that replenishes your mental and emotional resources when approached with the right mindset and intention. The chapter offers practical guidance on how to ease into solitude by carving out regular moments free from distraction, such as through meditation, journaling, walking alone in nature, or engaging in creative hobbies that deepen your connection with yourself. It points out that embracing solitude strengthens emotional boundaries, making you less vulnerable to unhealthy relationships, peer pressure, or the need to people please, because your sense of self-worth becomes intrinsic and not contingent on others' approval. The chapter explores the cognitive and creative benefits of solitude, explaining how periods of being alone allow your brain to enter states of deep focus, incubation, and insight, which are essential for problem-solving, innovation, and meaningful creative expression. It includes examples from history and psychology, demonstrating how solitude has been a catalyst for breakthroughs among great thinkers, writers, and leaders who needed quiet space to tap into their unique vision and wisdom. Additionally, it confronts the cultural stigma surrounding solitude, which often equates being alone with loneliness or social failure, and instead invites you to redefine solitude as a vital practice of self-care, self-mastery, and personal empowerment. The chapter stresses that cultivating comfort in solitude is not about withdrawing from the world, but about developing a healthy balance between social connection and inner grounding, so you can engage with others from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. It emphasizes that when you are comfortable alone, you are less reactive to social pressures or toxic dynamics and more capable of choosing relationships that nurture your growth and authenticity. Furthermore, the chapter discusses how solitude supports mental clarity by reducing overwhelm and sensory overload, allowing your mind to process experiences and emotions calmly and deeply, which improves decision-making and emotional regulation. It explains that regular alone time nurtures resilience by training you to be comfortable with discomfort, silence, and stillness conditions that many avoid, but which are essential for developing patience, acceptance, and inner strength. The chapter also addresses the spiritual dimension of solitude, noting that many contemplative traditions view being alone as a gateway to profound insight, transcendence, and connection with a higher purpose or universal consciousness. It highlights that modern life's constant connectivity often robs people of solitude's benefits, leading to burnout, distraction, and a fragmented sense of self, making the intentional pursuit of alone time a revolutionary act of reclaiming control over your mental and emotional well-being. The chapter encouraged adopting solitude not as isolation, but as a source of rejuvenation, creative incubation, and self-nurturing that enhances your ability to show up fully for your goals, relationships, and life purpose. It also explores how learning to enjoy your own company builds emotional independence, reducing the fear of abandonment or rejection, and freeing you to pursue your path without being overly influenced by others' expectations or judgments. The chapter suggests practical rituals to celebrate and deepen your alone time, such as mindfulness exercises, deep breathing, solo travel, or unplugging from technology, all designed to cultivate presence and connection with your inner world. It stresses that being comfortable alone is a lifelong skill that requires patience and practice, as well as compassion for yourself during moments of discomfort or doubt. By embracing solitude, you gain a powerful tool for self-reflection, creativity, and emotional healing that helps you build a strong foundation for personal mastery. Ultimately, the chapter conveys that getting comfortable being alone transforms you from someone who seeks external validation and distraction into someone who is grounded, self-aware, and empowered, ready to create a life aligned with your deepest values and authentic self, while engaging with the world on your own terms with confidence and grace. Chapter 9. Turn Pain into Power. Chapter 9. Turn Pain into Power offers a comprehensive exploration of how individuals can fundamentally transform the inevitable hardships, emotional wounds, and life challenges they encounter into potent sources of strength, growth, and motivation, illustrating that pain itself is neither inherently destructive nor permanent, but rather a critical raw material that, when processed with awareness and intention, can fuel profound personal evolution and empowerment. It begins by acknowledging the universality of pain, reminding that suffering is a shared human experience spanning loss, failure, rejection, trauma, disappointment, and inner conflicts, and emphasizing that the initial human impulse to avoid, suppress, or deny such pain through distractions, addictions, or emotional shutdowns only prolongs distress and stalls progress. The chapter thoroughly dissects the psychological processes involved in this transformative journey, explaining how confronting pain courageously requires emotional bravery and acceptance, which allows for a conscious engagement with uncomfortable feelings rather than reactive avoidance. It reveals that this engagement activates healing pathways in the brain and body, helping individuals process emotions deeply rather than being overwhelmed or controlled by them. The text highlights the power of reframing, showing how shifting the narrative around painful experiences from one of victimhood or defeat to one of learning and opportunity is essential in converting pain into a constructive force. This mental shift fosters resilience by teaching you to see obstacles as temporary and meaningful rather than insurmountable. The chapter dives into practical tools and methods that facilitate this transformation, such as journaling to externalize and organize thoughts and emotions, which clarifies insight and reduces emotional overload, or seeking support through trusted relationships, therapy, or mentoring that provides perspective, validation, and guidance during difficult times. It also recommends creative outlets like art, music, writing, or physical exercise as powerful channels for expressing and releasing pain, helping transform energy from suffering into productivity and self-expression. The chapter stresses the importance of cultivating patience and self-compassion throughout the healing process, acknowledging that growth from pain is rarely linear and often involves setbacks, doubts, and moments of vulnerability that must be met with kindness rather than self-criticism. It explores how working through pain fosters emotional intelligence, enhancing your ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions and those of others, thereby strengthening relationships and deepening empathy. Furthermore, it discusses how enduring and overcoming hardship often instills a sense of purpose, as the lessons learned can inspire you to help and uplift others facing similar struggles, turning your pain into a source of service and connection that transcends individual suffering. The chapter cautions against the dangers of letting pain turn into bitterness, resentment, or self-pity, which can trap you in toxic cycles and erode mental health. Instead, it encouraged taking full responsibility for your healing journey and focusing on actionable steps that propel you forward. It also examines the role of mindset and belief systems in this transformation, noting that adopting a growth-oriented outlook that views challenges as opportunities for development rather than threats is vital to maintaining momentum and optimism. The chapter explores physiological aspects as well, explaining how chronic emotional pain can manifest as stress, fatigue, or illness if left unaddressed, underscoring the holistic benefits of emotional healing for overall well-being. It emphasizes that turning pain into power does not mean erasing or minimizing past suffering, but integrating those experiences as chapters in your life, story that enrich your character and inform your choices. The text includes inspirational stories and psychological research illustrating how many successful people, from entrepreneurs to artists to survivors, have harnessed their darkest moments to fuel creativity, perseverance, and breakthroughs. It encourages cultivating mindfulness and self-reflection to increase awareness of pain triggers and habitual reactions, which enables conscious decision-making rather than impulsive responses. The chapter also discusses how developing this skill fosters a profound sense of agency and psychological freedom, allowing you to reclaim control over your narrative and refuse to be defined by adversity. It stresses that this empowerment fuels motivation and momentum, turning past wounds into fuel for setting ambitious goals and achieving personal excellence. The chapter closes by affirming that transforming pain into power is an ongoing, dynamic process that requires courage, commitment, and vulnerability, but ultimately leads to a more authentic, resilient, and purpose-driven life, where suffering is not a barrier, but a bridge to your highest potential. Chapter 10. Never Stop Improving. Chapter 10. Never Stop Improving thoroughly explores the vital philosophy and lifelong commitment to continuous personal development, asserting that the path to true fulfillment, success, and mastery is never static, but rather an ongoing process that requires persistent effort, self-awareness, and openness. It begins by explaining that complacency and stagnation are subtle but dangerous traps that can quietly erode not only progress, but also one's sense of purpose and motivation, making it essential to cultivate a mindset that actively seeks growth in every area of life, be it mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. The chapter dives deeply into the psychology of continuous improvement, discussing how adopting the mentality of a lifelong learner shifts your perspective from viewing achievements as final destinations to seeing them as milestones on an infinite journey. This mindset encourages resilience because setbacks, failures, and obstacles are reframed as valuable feedback and crucial learning opportunities rather than signals of defeat or inadequacy. The text emphasizes the importance of setting clear, measurable, and realistic incremental goals that keep you engaged and motivated, explaining how these small wins accumulate over time to create exponential growth and meaningful transformation. It underscores the necessity of regularly reviewing your progress through reflection and honest self-assessment, which helps identify areas of strength to build upon and weaknesses to address, ensuring your growth remains intentional and focused rather than haphazard or passive. The chapter explores the psychological benefits of continuous self-improvement, including enhanced self-confidence, greater emotional resilience, and increased adaptability to the inevitable uncertainties and changes life presents, highlighting how these qualities equip you to face challenges with composure and creativity rather than fear or avoidance. Practical strategies are laid out in detail, such as actively seeking constructive feedback from mentors, peers, or coaches to gain new insights and perspectives that you might overlook on your own. It encourages cultivating curiosity by consistently exposing yourself to new ideas, disciplines, and experiences, which broadens your horizons and prevents intellectual stagnation. The chapter also highlights the importance of surrounding yourself with people who inspire, challenge, and hold you accountable, as this social environment fosters motivation and keeps you aligned with your growth goals. It discusses the role of self-discipline and habit formation in sustaining the drive to improve, especially during periods when initial motivation fades or obstacles arise, emphasizing that structured routines, daily rituals, and systems can automate progress and make growth an effortless, integrated part of your life. The text warns about the dangers of comfort zones, explaining that while they may feel safe and familiar, they limit potential by reinforcing outdated beliefs and behaviors, and that true advancement comes from deliberately pushing beyond these boundaries to explore new capabilities and perspectives. It explores the concept of the growth mindset in detail, revealing how embracing challenges, persisting through difficulties, and seeing effort as the path to mastery dismantle limiting beliefs and expand what you believe is possible for yourself. The chapter also stresses the importance of patience and self-compassion, recognizing that growth is non-linear and that setbacks, plateaus, or slow progress are natural parts of the journey that require kindness towards oneself to sustain momentum. It delves into the integration of continuous improvement into daily life, showing how making learning and self-betterment habitual, whether through reading, practicing skills, mindfulness, or other growth-oriented activities, creates a ripple effect that elevates all areas of life, from relationships to career to health. The chapter examines how this commitment to growth enhances not just personal success, but also emotional well-being, as it nurtures a sense of purpose, agency, and fulfillment derived from actively shaping one's life, rather than passively reacting to circumstances. It includes examples from psychology, neuroscience, and biographies of high achievers to illustrate how constant refinement of skills, mindset, and habits has been the cornerstone of exceptional accomplishment across fields. The text encourages embracing uncertainty and viewing change not as a threat, but as an invitation to evolve, adapt, and innovate, making growth a dynamic and exciting process rather than a chore. It discusses how the refusal to stop improving fosters humility and openness, keeping you teachable and aware that no matter how much you know or achieve, there is always more to learn and ways to become better. The chapter emphasizes that this philosophy is not about perfectionism or harsh self-judgment, but about a balanced, sustainable pursuit of excellence that honors progress and effort. It explores the social and spiritual dimensions of continuous improvement, showing how evolving yourself positively impacts your environment and relationships, and how aligning with your deeper values and purpose enriches the motivation to grow beyond superficial goals. The chapter closes with a powerful affirmation that the lifelong journey of never-stopping improvement is a path to living a richer, more empowered, and authentic life where you continuously move closer to your highest potential, embracing challenges, learning from every experience, and celebrating every step forward as a meaningful achievement in itself. Conclusion. The conclusion of the book serves as a powerful synthesis and reaffirmation of the foundational truths and strategies presented throughout the journey, emphasizing that the path to authentic success, happiness, and fulfillment is deeply rooted in the conscious decision to focus unwaveringly on oneself, on personal growth, mindset, habits, and resilience, recognizing that external circumstances and opinions are fleeting and ultimately secondary to the inner work required to build a meaningful life. It highlights that this journey is neither linear nor easy. Rather, it demands steadfast discipline, relentless patience, and the courage to face discomfort and uncertainty head-on, as transformation rarely happens overnight, but unfolds through consistent, incremental progress over time. The conclusion underscores the importance of rejecting the temptation to seek external validation or quick rewards, instead fostering an intrinsic motivation that springs from a clear vision of one's values, goals, and highest potential, which serves as a compass during moments of doubt or distraction. Drawing together the themes of the book, it reiterates how cutting through the noise, whether it be social media, other people's expectations, or self-doubt, creates the mental space necessary to hear one's authentic voice and align daily actions with long-term aspirations. It revisits the critical role of mindset, explaining that cultivating a growth-oriented, resilient mental framework allows individuals to reinterpret failures and setbacks as valuable lessons rather than insurmountable obstacles, thereby transforming challenges into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. The conclusion also reaffirms the power of respecting time as an invaluable resource, encouraging readers to guard their focus and energy zealously, to prioritize tasks and habits that serve their vision, and to eliminate or minimize distractions and toxic influences that sap momentum. It reflects deeply on the formation of empowering habits, emphasizing that sustained change is not born from sporadic bursts of effort, but from the deliberate building of daily routines that reinforce growth, discipline, and self-trust, turning positive actions into automatic behaviors that propel individuals forward even when motivation wanes. The conclusion explores the often overlooked value of solitude, encouraging readers to embrace moments alone as opportunities to reconnect with themselves, recharge, and gain clarity amidst life's chaos, thereby enhancing creativity, emotional regulation, and decision-making. It powerfully reiterates the transformative potential of turning pain and adversity into fuel for growth, resilience, and empathy, encouraging the reader to see suffering not as a permanent burden, but as a source of wisdom and strength that can deepen purpose and compassion for others. Moreover, it stresses the critical mindset of never ceasing to improve, framing self-development as an endless journey that requires humility and curiosity, reminding readers that mastery and growth are lifelong commitments that enrich every aspect of life relationships, career, health, and inner peace. The conclusion also touches on the psychological and emotional benefits of this continuous focus on self-improvement, including increased confidence, a stronger sense of agency, and a profound feeling of empowerment that arises when one takes full responsibility for their life and choices. It encourages embracing imperfection and setbacks with compassion rather than judgment, fostering a sustainable approach to growth that balances ambition with kindness toward oneself. The conclusion reminds that this inward focus is not selfish, but a necessary foundation for authentic contribution to others and the world, as only by mastering oneself can one truly inspire and uplift those around them. It offers a hopeful and motivating call to action, urging readers to persevere through inevitable challenges, maintain unwavering commitment to their vision, and cultivate patience and resilience as they navigate the ups and downs of their journey. The text closes by emphasizing that winning in life is not a singular moment or achievement, but an ongoing state of becoming, a continuous refinement of mindset, habits, and character that leads to living authentically and powerfully in alignment with one's deepest values and highest potential, ultimately creating a life of purpose, freedom, and profound satisfaction that no external circumstance can take away.